up my loves, my name is Paige, this is Pages with Paige, and today we're going to be doing my October wrap up. Hello my darlings, welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking through the 13 books that I read in October. I had so much fun with my reads last month. Definitely slowed down the pace after September, so it was very refreshing just to be able to plod along at my own pace. I definitely slumped, but still managed to get a lot read, and I'm really happy with what I did read, aside from one of the books. So we'll dive into the stats and then talk through the books themselves. I am probably not going to go too in-depth on some of them, and I'll explain why when we get to them. But like I said, the amount of books that I read was 13 in October, which equated to 3,819 pages, and this is buffeted by 295 pages of The Dragon Keeper as well, which I read at the end of September but didn't count it in those stats, which equated to be 123 pages per day, and my average page per book is 294. So definitely on the slightly slimmer side this time, but I'm not mad at it because I got through some of the things that I've been really wanting to pick up. Speaking of, in terms of page ranges, I read 3 that were in the hundreds page range, 5 in the 200s, 3 in the 300s, 1 in the 400s, and 1 in the 500s. My average rating was a 4.27, which I thought was actually quite high considering some of the ratings that we had. And my genres was 1 classic, 1 contemporary, 4 fantasy, 1 horror, 2 manga, 2 mystery, 1 romance, and 1 sci-fi. In terms of format, I had 1 pure audiobook, 2 pure ebooks, 1 pure physical book, and 9 physical audiobook combos. In terms of age range, I read 1 middle grade, 2 young adult, 2 new adult, and 8 adult titles. In terms of rating, I had 1 2-star, oh my god, I had a 2-star rating, what is this? I had 1 3.5, 4 4 stars, 2 4.5, and 5 5 stars. I read 5 standalones, I started 1 new series, I read 5 continuations, I caught up with 1 series, and I did complete 1 series. My biggest book was The Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb, which was 553 pages, but again, 295 pages of that was read in September. And my smallest book was The Ascent to Godhood by Neon Yang, which was 122 pages. And my total listening hours was 39 hours. So it was a very weird month of reading, but I still, out of the things that I enjoyed a lot. And I finally got to some bits and pieces that had been floating around in the back, so I was very happy to be able to mark those off my list. So the first thing that I read was Solita Volume 2, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. I'm starting to enjoy this series a lot more, but I can't go too in depth because since this point I have now read another 3 volumes, and trying to pull what happened in the second volume is not possible, which is fine. I just know that I enjoyed the series. There was still a little bit of fan service, but not as much as the first one, so I definitely enjoyed it more, and it was interesting to see how our characters and their dynamics are evolving. An enjoyable read, and just continuing on, starting to get into a better understanding of the world. The next thing that I read was The Ascent to Godhood by Neon Yang, which was this much of this book. And I also gave it a 4 stars. It has been a long time since I was in this world, and so it was a little bit hard for me to get back into this, as I felt very much on the outside. I couldn't remember a lot of who the characters were. Because these are so short and novella length for each of the books, I find it very easy to lose focus in this series, but I really like the direction that it went with the interview style. And when I got into it and I remembered a lot of key players and a lot of key information, it was like, oh yeah, and so it clicked. It made that much more sense, and I really liked the way that it ended in being a more interview style because of the way that the previous books have shaped up to where we're now at this point. So being the last book in the series, I can't go into too much detail, but it is a really wonderfully beautiful fantasy world, and it's just, oh, so interesting. The next book that I completed was The Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb, and 5 stars. I know that a lot of people don't enjoy the Rainwild Chronicle series, but starting off with this, I'm not mad. I was very captivated to see where we were ending up, and considering I binged a lot of it towards the end of September, I then paced it out over the beginning of October, but I didn't feel like I lost my rhythm at all. I really love Thymara's character, and I'm just really intrigued where we're going with it. So I know that it's not the most loved series out of the realm of the Elderlings, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to continue on with the next book in the series. And then I read A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, and giving this 5 stars. Just the existential crisis I went through while reading this book was hilarious. I ended up having to stay up to read past a particular point because there were so many parallels with particular family members of their family to my family that I was just like, holy mother of sweet lord, petrified, absolutely petrified. And now putting this in the context of things that have happened in the past week also is doing bananas in, but that's fine. It's all good. I so creeped out by this. Purely on a personal standpoint, I do think it has those horror elements, that creepy atmosphere that T. Kingfisher's known for, but I don't know if people will get as wigged out as I did. But I had a glorious time with it, and it was one of those that I've talked about with so many people, just being like, oh my god, do you mind if I spoil it, because I have to tell you about this and how it relates with my family. And it was such an interesting time, such an interesting magic world. The end is so creepy. I just, oh, so good. So I don't know if it's going to be for everyone in terms of like horror, but for me, I really enjoyed the reading experience because it completely wigged me out. It was great. The next book I ended up picking up, I wasn't intending on picking it up next because we had particular prompts for Fabelin that were dropping, and I needed a book with either, I think, with wings on the cover. So I did my annual reread of Matilda by Roald Dahl after scouring my shelves to find one that had birds on it so I could read it straight after A House with Good Bones, because I was talking to mum and I'm like, where do I go from here? And she's like, you need to reread Matilda. I was like, I'm due for my yearly reread, like, give me the birds. This is one time when owning like 16 copies of a book is really gonna work in my favor. I ended up picking this up for Fabelin and read it again, 5 stars. I've read it every year since 2016, and I adore this story, so I'm not gonna go too in depth. I really love listening to this narrated by Kate Winslet, I believe, and it's just so fun. It makes me happy every time I pick it up. And then the next book that I read was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and I gave this 2 stars. Oh lordy, it was a struggle. And I think I don't stumble across many of these books where I'm going, it's not bad enough to DNF it. It's not bad enough that I want to do a rant review on it, but it's bad enough that I'm just bored shitless. They were just toxic. What? Hold up. I didn't like these characters. They're not meant to be. You aren't meant to like them. It's fine. But it was just a name. It was, y'all need to be in fucking therapy? Just go talk to someone. I know it didn't exist back then, or if it did, it was not in a way that would actually be conducive to actually propelling and helping. But regardless, just talk. And I've just read the back, being like, Wuthering Heights has achieved an almost mythical status as a love story. Excuse me, what? If anyone thinks of this as a love story, please go seek therapy. It's like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus level of fuckery. Yet it is also a unique masterpiece of the imagination, an unsettling transgressive novel about obsession, violence, and death. That, full agree. That lives up to the expectation. No, I can enjoy books with unlikable characters. I don't have to root for every single character. You don't have to redeem them. You can have just it be a shit show of shit. But I just didn't get along with this. It was a chore to get through. I enjoyed Nellie's perspective. I really liked hearing her story. But at the same time, a lot of the time I was just like, y'all are fucking idiots. What the fuck are you doing? If it was set in contemporary times, I still wouldn't like it. It's just, ugh. I do have to admit, the atmosphere, like the setting, beautiful. I really loved the countryside, journeying through the fields, all of that aspect of it, enjoyable. It's the characters though, just stop it. So, 2 stars. I've read it. I'm pretty sure it ticks off the box on my 100 books, so yay. If I wasn't collecting these Penguin editions, I would unhaul it, but this is the 3rd copy of this book that I have owned. And I now understand why I unhauled the other 2. But I've read it. It's done. feel free to come at me in the comments, it's fine. Next up, I read Solita Volume 3, and again, 4 stars. Enjoying it a lot more, less fan service in it, so enjoying actually learning about the magic and where we're looking at going. Again, don't have too many thoughts. It is a really interesting magic system, and I'm really enjoying getting to know the characters. They're just also so quick and easy to get through because they are so entertaining, with the characters just being like, I'm the best thing ever, I'm gonna show you up. This guy can't deal with things not being symmetrical. Yeah, it doesn't take itself seriously, and I really appreciate it about that. So I'm having a lot of fun with the series as we're progressing throughout the volumes, but I don't have deep thoughts on the series as a whole. Next up, I read Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, and oh my god, this surprised the shit out of me. I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars, and I so appreciate John Green. Knowing that this is his experience and how he managed to articulate it into words was just beautiful. There were moments with Asa that I was like, oh god, yes, we're reading from a 16-year-old. It's fine. I don't know how John Green managed to portray like a 16-year-old so accurately, but they really did. And I really appreciated her and Daisy's dynamic because I could see so much of the reality of it, and I just appreciated that. And I definitely hurt when there was a particular moment in here where Asa's OCD really hit a critical point, and it was like, oh my gosh, just knowing that that's the experience and the feeling of not being able to settle was so heartbreaking, but so exceptionally well done. I ended up going and rewatching You Can't Ask That on Australia's, I think it's ABC, about obsessive compulsive disorder, and it was just so interesting pairing this with their lived experiences. And yeah, I think there was just some moments of just a little bit fictional YA that I was like, oh, take me out. But overall, I understand why so many people love this. Next up, I read Dark Restraint by Katie Robert, 5 stars. This is the 7th in the Dark Olympus series and following Ariadne and the Minotaur. Hey. I think this is leaning more plot focused, with smut straight out of the gate, but not being the main point. The plot is definitely taking more of a focus as we focus more on what's happening in Olympus and what's going on in the outskirts, and it's expanding more and more and more in comparison to Neon Gods, where we were focusing solely on Persephone and Hades. But we do also have He's Driven by His Clock, and that's what I expect from a Katie Robert, and I had a glorious time with it. Next up, I read Roadside Picnic by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, and this was for Erin's bookish peeps of reading a book about aliens but set on Earth. And this was so interesting. I gave it 4 stars, and I feel like I need to reread it because you don't really see the aliens. There's an incident that happens and you pull that experience into everyday existence, but the consequences of that continue on. And I would have liked, I think in Erin's review on Goodreads as well, they say that they would like to see more of the aliens, more of being in the zone, which is like this Area 52 sort of thing, where people go and scavenger and pull artifacts from there into the rest of the world, which is still operating as per usual. And I definitely would have liked to experience more of that because it was just following some of the character dynamics and his own philosophies and just his life as he goes into it. But it was really fascinating seeing just how everything shaped up, and I think the ending lost me a little bit. But aside from that, it was very easy to read. It was quite accessible. It wasn't heavy into the sci-fi language, so I feel like that's a component of it. But I really enjoyed this and appreciated what it said. Then I read The Iron Queen by Julie Kagawa, which is the 3rd in the Iron Fae series, and gave this a 3.5. We're continuing on with the series. We're following our protagonist, who is now 17 at the beginning of this book and in love with an immortal being, because that's not concerning at all, doing YA things, trying to take back and save the realm. So this series, it's going in knowing it's 2010s YA fantasy. I just respect that that's what I'm going in for, and I have a good time. But I don't think this series is gonna stick with me long term. Then the next book that I read was Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson, and this is the arc which Ash recently got signed at the author event, and it was so lovely. I gave this a 4.5, but after hearing Benjamin speak about just writing comedy, he's a stand-up comedian for 20 years and was an editor before trying his hand at writing, and the way that he spoke was just so eloquent. Everything made sense, and it made this make more sense because this isn't a genre that I usually read from, but I find that his books are so captivating. It was so funny because this is the first audiobook that I've ever listened to while driving, and I actually managed to retain the information. Huh. Also helped as I was going to park, the first murder happens and I'm like, oh my god, oh gosh, oh what the fuck. And I wanted to keep listening, but I obviously had to go to work, so that was unfortunate. But it's just so fun the way that he approaches this, and we're following Ernest Cunningham, and he's invited to this Australia's Writers Festival that's set on the Gun. And being Australian, there's just so many things that I absolutely adore about his writing, because there are so many just pure Aussie moments that I appreciate and I don't get in a lot of literature. So I had so much fun with it. Basically the premise is everyone on this train is a suspect, following on from everyone in my family has killed someone. Also, if you are planning on reading the Christmas book that's just come out, Everyone This Christmas Has a Secret, it is an advent calendar and you can read like a chapter every day leading up to Christmas. So I just know that a few people are planning to read it, and I didn't know if people were aware of that, but he has designed it to be an advent calendar and I love that so fucking much. And then the final book that I read in October was The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman, continuing on in the Thursday Murder Club and giving this 5 stars. I just adore these characters so gosh darn diddly much. They're so sweet. I can't. I love them. Everything about them is beautiful. I really enjoyed just seeing where they got up to, the mystery that we're continuing on with, and seeing what chaos and mischief that they get mixed into. I love seeing all the side characters and their stories as well, because there's some relationships that are developing, and I didn't cry in this one, which was surprising, but I didn't. And your heart, these characters has my heart and soul, and honestly that's all I need for a good book. So I had so much fun continuing on with this, and I'm not prepared to have my heart ripped out in the next one, which I've been forewarned. Thank you. So this plus 2 volumes of Solita and the Iron Queen were the books that I read in October, and I'm really proud of this stack. I had such a glorious time and helped out my team for Vabelin, which I was very, very chuffed with. So yeah, I'm chuffed. I had a good time. I read things that I've been meaning to get to for a while, and ones that I've been really eager for. So yeah, let me know in the comments if there was a book that you got to in October that surprised you with how much you enjoyed it, or just your best read, or anything you want to let me know. Feel free to leave it in the comments down below. And if you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe. I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!